Welcome back. This is the third of our three-part series on building functional mental toughness, how you can build your mental toughness for any setting, whether you're an athlete, a professor, a business owner, a spouse, a parent, a teacher, a coach. It doesn't matter. That's the exciting thing about this. We're not just talking about Navy SEALs and athletes. We're talking about practical aspects that comes out of the research that you can apply regardless of your setting. In the first video, we talked through the overall diagram and we went into the Thrive piece. Let me give you a quick overview on that diagram just so we have our baseline set. You've got a functional mental toughness bank right there in the middle. The goal of your financial bank is to fill the account, right? And then not have it leak off with a bunch of little expenses, $2 here, $7 there. And then when you need that money, it's ready, you're ready to buy that house or that car, you've got an emergency fund, you want to be able to access it. It doesn't do any good to have the money sitting in an account that you can't get to, you can't utilize. The same thing is true with your mental toughness. We want to build it up as much as we possibly can. We want to limit the leakage. Don't spend the mental toughness on dumb stuff that you could automate, stuff that you could put on cruise control. And then when it's that critical moment, when you step up on that stage, when you step to that starting line, when you're ready to go, when it's go time with that conversation or that meeting or whatever it is that is your critical moment, you can activate it. You can pull that out. And that's going to be the focus of this video, is the activate piece. Now you're ready. You're in that critical moment. And now you need to draw on it. Now, again, as I've said in the other videos, you're not using this level of mental toughness 24/7. You're probably only using it a few minutes a day. And you may have some days you don't use it at all. But when you need it, in those critical moments, and those critical moments, I'll give you a quick example. We used the half marathon example in the last video. In that, you're not using mental toughness the entire half marathon. You're using it at critical times when your brain says, you know what, let's just let off a little bit. And then you pull in that little bank account and you go, nope, let's do this thing. So it's not like you're using it the whole time. You're not using it the whole time in that test that you're taking. You're not using it the whole time in that speech that you're giving. You're not using it the whole time in that putting that business plan together. It's those critical moments when the physiology says, I may not have it today, that the mental toughness says, oh yes, we do. So this video, we're going to focus in on the last phase, the activate phase. So there's thrive, there's prepare, and now there's activate. And we're going to walk you through a couple of these things around activate that you can apply regardless of what your setting is, your background, or where you're wanting to apply this. I'm Dr. Bradford Cooper, the Catalyst Coaching Institute, where our goal is to help people be a catalyst. Now, if you know anything about the catalyst concept, the catalyst is something that makes a difference. It has an impact. It helps optimize any situation, but it doesn't get burned out in the process. That's our goal for you, is to have an impact as a coach, as a teacher, as a leader, as a spouse, as a parent, as an individual contributing to this world, but not getting burned out in the process. And that's why we're so excited about this FMT Trilogy concept, because it allows you to do that in very practical ways. All right, so speaking of practical, let's dive into the practical aspects of this activate phase of the FMT Trilogy. You've got three things you see up there: mind, body, soul. We named it that way just to help make it more memorable, make it easier for you to kind of keep your arms around. I'm going to focus most of this video on the mind piece because that's really where the emphasis is. Obviously, mental toughness. I'll briefly mention a couple of the others, but let's dive into this mind piece out of the gate. You've got two basically headlines under the mind piece. You've got associative and you've got dissociative. Now, let's talk that through first and then we'll go a layer deeper. Associative is zooming in. It's when you're focusing in on your situation. You're saying, okay, I'm here. I'm really going to dial in where I'm at and what I'm doing and what I'm focusing on. By contrast, dissociative is pulling back. It's saying, okay, I need to kind of take a mental break. I need to step away without literally stepping away. So you're dissociating from where you are without leaving that spot physically. All right, so we've got associative and dissociative. You've got self-talk, interestingly, that fits under both of those. Now, under the associative, where you're zooming in, you've got two options there. You can use it in terms of motivational style of self-talk. You can do it as instructional style of self-talk. And you're going to go back and forth. You're probably going to use both of these. Some people prefer more one over the other. You know, some people respond better to motivational, other people respond better to instructional. So you're going to want to try these out. Whatever your setting is, think through your self-talk. What are you doing now? What is your baseline? How could you tweak that? What little phrase could you change to make that a little bit different? But you're really looking at two different options on the associative side, and that is instructional or motivational. And they're just what they sound like. Instructional is like having a coach on your shoulder. If I'm out at the track doing 10 by 400s, the instructional version would be, saying to myself, okay, relax your arms, push off that first toe, lift your hip. So that's instruction to what I'm trying to do. Motivational would be the more basic, come on, Coop, you got this, you can do this, come on, buddy, you can do this. And by the way, interesting study, not part of our research, but another study that was done later looked at the difference between you've got this and I've got this. And the second person, the you, seemed to have a bigger impact. So that's our associative self-talk. Let's pop down to the dissociative and talk that through a little bit. You can also use self-talk as a distraction. There are certain events that you don't want distractions. You want to stay focused in. But there are certain settings where you're out there a long time. And you need to pull that in every once in a while. So if you're in a test, you're not going to want to use dissociative self-talk because you want to be focused in. It's a succinct period of time. But for example, I've had an opportunity to do 11 Ironmans, 4 times at the World Championship in Kona. And during that 112-mile bike, which runs about 5 hours, I do want to dissociate. I do want to pull away. I'm still pedaling. I'm still doing my thing. I'm not like whistling and, talking to the birds or something. But I do want to kind of let my brain relax a little bit. And so I'll use a dissociative technique during that 112-mile bike that is dissociating from the race. But it allows me to step away mentally, relax my brain in a different way, and be more successful when those big other times come. So that's one of the strategies you can use in self-talk, where you're literally pulling away, you're dissociating from it. Another way to dissociate is music. Now, there are sporting events you can't use music, but there are sporting events that you can. There are training sessions that you can, and you might want to use that. Now, one of the things that I have not yet studied, but I'm going to throw this out there because I've used it on a case-by-case basis, and I think you might find it interesting, and maybe there's a researcher out there that's saying, oh, I'm going to study that. Jump on it, and I'd love to hear from you if you do that. But that's where you use music on, off. So for example, I'm an elite masters runner, but I'm not a professional athlete. So I can use music out there in the course. So let's go back to our half marathon example. One of the things I've been trying successfully is not having the music the whole 13.1 miles, but leaving it off for a couple of miles. It's not always safe to have music at the beginning. So leaving it off for a couple of miles as you get through the packs. And then as things start to spread out, I'll turn the music on for a mile, and then I'll turn it off and do self-talk for a mile. And then I'll turn it on for a mile, and then off. And then maybe I'll leave it off for a couple miles in the middle, and then I'll use it at the end of the race. So the music, that last mile, that's my chance to really fire it up. So you can see how I'm going back and forth between associative, dissociative, and using that music as a dissociative during that extended period that might run an hour and 20 minutes or so, and allowing that to boost up the mental toughness on the in-between. So that'd be an example. You could use that for other things, not applicable in all settings, but applicable in a lot. Future self is another opportunity on the dissociative. It's where you're pulling away from your current situation and you're saying, but who is my future self? Who is that person that I'm becoming? Who is that person that I want to be? My son and I, we both run, and once in a while in fact, usually when we're both doing serious training, we'll text each other how it went. So he goes out and does a track workout. He'll shoot me a note. Hey, here's how it went. I pushed through this one. My best one was this. I'll go out and do a tempo run. I'll say, hey, I did a 10-mile tempo run, and here's what happened. Well, I've used this future self a lot with him, and I've actually shared with him that he's a big help with this. And the way it works is, I'm struggling. And of course you're struggling. You're pushing yourself to the nth degree. You're pushing the physiology as far as you can go. That's when mental toughness comes in, is when the physiology says, I'm doing everything I can. The mental toughness says, oh, well, I'm going to take you one level higher. And the future self allows me to do that. Let's say I'm out there doing a 10-mile pace run, and I get to mile 7, and I'm really struggling. And my physiological desire at that point is to say, you know what? I put in a good 6 to 7. That's probably good enough. But I'm going to text my son later. That future self thing comes to the forefront. Am I going to text my son, well, I was doing a 10-mile pace run, but I kind of got really tired around mile 7, so I gave up. And is that the dad that I want to be for him? I don't think so. I don't think it's the person you want to be either. You want to be your best self, especially with your kids, especially with your coworkers, especially with your friends. So that's a way that it's just a simple example of how I'll use future self to say, wait a minute, what am I going to be texting him later? Because whatever it is that I want to text him later, I got to do now. So that's a powerful process. You can do it in a lot of different formats, but that's just a simple example. Maybe you can apply to what you're doing. The last one I want through here on the mind piece is the process focus. This is something that I am not good at. It's something that I'm continuing to work through, but let me share with you the basics of it, and maybe you can apply it in some way. Goals are critically important. I'm a huge believer in goals. The research is very strong on goals. They're immensely valuable during the lead up time. In the midst of the critical moment, the goals can be very disruptive. They can remember that in the last video we talked about challenge threat. Being too focused on your goals in the moment, in that critical moment, can actually flip you from challenge to threat. Again, we'll keep using this half marathon example. Let's say I'm trying to average 6-minute miles for a half marathon. I go through the first 3, I'm staying on pace, and then 4, 5, 6, I go 6:07, 6:12, 6:21. So I'm about 30 seconds off my pace, and I've only got a few miles left to get there. Well, if I'm super focused on the goal, if I'm just like, oh my gosh, I lost 7 seconds on mile 4, I lost 12 seconds on mile 5, I lost 22 seconds on mile 6. Well, guess what happens? I flip from challenge to threat, and now I'm less effective. So the idea that we get with this process focus is to say, let's use the goals, those incredibly focused, identified, specific goals in the lead up period, in the training time, to drive the way that we're training, preparing, and again, applies to any setting, folks. This isn't just athletics, but in this example, in that lead up time, but on the day of the race, we focus on the process. The goal's there, it's not taken off the table, it's sitting over here in the periphery, but the process is where we're trying to keep our focus during that race. So instead of me thinking, I'm 30 seconds off, what am I going to do? We go back to the process. Am I pushing off that toe? Am I relaxing the arms? How's my breathing? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you focus on the process, and that allows the mental toughness. You're not leaking off mental toughness for stuff that isn't helping you otherwise. All right? So that's the mind piece. The body piece, the soul, I'm just going to hit a couple of these real quick. One of them I do want to talk about is the smile piece. It's something that you can do whether you're stepping up on a stage, whether you're stepping into a meeting, whether you're getting ready to work on that business proposal, whether you're sitting down for that test, or whether you're starting or finishing a big race. Smiling matters. If you've watched the Nike project with Kipchoge, when he was trying to break 2 hours in the marathon, he was using this. It's incredible. I mean, he's literally smiling, and it's not some hokey, type thing. But you could tell he had a little bit of a grin on his face, running a 4:35 mile at mile 24 of this marathon. He's still doing it because he knows it matters. If it matters for that guy, the greatest marathoner we've ever seen in the history of the world, it matters for us. So let's do it, not just in athletics, but in these other settings as well. The smile, though, builds on another opportunity, and that's something, I don't know if you know who Chrissy Wellington is, but she's a multiple-time Ironman world champion, and we were fortunate to have her on the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching podcast a while back, and I asked her about this because she's known for her smiling. In fact, her Twitter handle is Chrissy Smiles, and we talked about, did you know about the research? Were you aware? Is that why you smile, or part of the reason you smile out there in the course is because you've heard about the physiological response? And she just laughed, of course. And she said, oh, Brad, I had no idea. And this is where she pulled in not just the smiling piece, but this part that we've got listed under soul of tapping into support. She said, I'm an Ironman triathlete. It's not like I'm at the Super Bowl. We've got several thousand people out there cheering, but we don't have hundreds of thousands of people. So I wanted to try to give something back to the people that did come out to see us race, and I would just smile at them. And she said a weird thing happened. I would smile at them, and then they'd smile back, and it gave me this lift. And then I'd run better. And it was just this fascinating. So again, I don't have research on this one. We have it in a different way in terms of the support, the people around you. We did find that, and again, we'll have a link to that in some of our research around this, but not specific to smiling on an Ironman triathlon course. But it's just very interesting to see her experience backed up what we saw in our research. and you can do that as well. So who are the people around you for that support? Have you taken advantage of that? Again, a lot of the mental toughness videos out there, they're almost encouraging the opposite. They're almost like, just go into your cave and do your thing and ignore your world out there, and you got this. It's all about you. It's not all about you. It never has been. It never will be. When you're connected, when you build that relationship stuff that we talked about in that first Thrive section in the very first video, that allows you to tap into that in the moment, during that critical moment, to build that mental toughness even further. That's our Thrive, Prepare, and Activate. If this stuff is valuable to you, let us know. We can dig into this even further. I can talk about this stuff for hours. We will have some resources for you in the section down below if you want to tap into that. And you can always reach out to us at catalystcoachinginstitute.com if you've got any questions. So I'm Dr. Bradford Cooper, the Catalyst Coaching Institute. Thank you for joining us. I hope this was helpful to you. Now let's go be a catalyst.